Right.
But then you get to a point where you start to, be more active, or you start to put your health first, or you start to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh, wait, this is what feeling good feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I was really missing out when I didn't get good sleep, when I
Yeah.
didn't exercise, when I didn't eat right and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then when I fall back into some of those habits of, staying up late, or, not doing the things that I should be doing, eating or drinking health, like with health, then I start feeling that way again. It's like, no, I know what good health feels like, and I want to get back to that. So,
Exactly.
it's like,
Yeah.
it is super important, but it's also important to set up your lifestyle, in a way that it promotes you to get good sleep and to put that first.
And that's not easy. I mean, especially when you're young and you're in a career. I mean, we were talking earlier about, you're a mechanical engineer, you started your first company, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Younger, in my era, if you want to call it that, I mean, we still tried to work for one company and maybe move to 2 or 3 companies, but the point was still, hey, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder. I was driven, I'm going to get where I want to get. And many of us, early in our careers, we use a lot of that energy to be successful at that time, what we deem to be successful, right?
Yep, definitely. And so you're playing hockey,
Yep.
you're staying active, you're working your way onto the team, but trying to understand, hey, how do I go from maybe not the best person on the team to being part of a team that can win games or whatever.
Yep.
And so you're learning that skill, you're getting into college age. What are you looking for as you're looking to make that decision of what career path do you want to go on to, or what do you want to learn?
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, you say that because I was trying to think about that. I remember I was in high school, and I told my mom and dad, I go, I don't know what I want to do, where I want to go. I'm going to graduate soon. And they just said, you're good at math and science. You should be an engineer. I said, okay. I mean, that's all thought I put into it. So I went off to college to be an engineer, and not even sure what that was, what you did as an engineer. Except I did have to say that I knew I liked to make things. I still have a sketch of my first patent, first idea that I wanted to get patent. I saved a bunch of stuff when I was a kid, and my wife found it, and she framed it and she put it up on the wall for me. It was really interesting. But yeah, so that was how I chose my career, quite honestly.
Your parents noticed something in you that you had a skill that maybe, you just hadn't pinpointed, but you enjoyed potentially. And they said, hey, maybe this is the right path for you. So you jumped on engineering and you got into those first classes. Where did you end up going to school?
So I went to Michigan Technological University for my first 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as you got into it and understood more about engineering, did you agree with that path, or did you feel like, oh shoot, what did I get myself into?
Well, that's a great question. The interesting thing was, all the way through school, grade school, high school, junior high, I didn't study much. I just kind of got good grades, right?
Yeah.
So, the first challenge I had, and maybe some people out there has experienced as well, you had to develop study habits. So, I got into it, and I did enjoy it. I did well, I did relatively well at Michigan Tech. And I remember coming home on probably was my sophomore year, sophomore year, this Christmas, and I told my dad, I said, this is killing me. I'm just grinding, and it's not fun. You're going through the math, the physics, chemistry, the calculus, differential equations. I'm like, when are we going to do something? So my dad, in all his wisdom, I still remember, we drove down to the Ace Hardware store, and we bought a bunch of different kind of wood and some dowels. And, over that Christmas break, my dad and I made a wooden cutting board. And I just had so much joy in making that. I was like, this is phenomenal. I just love it. And I went back to school and was reinvigorated. So again, what I want to highlight is there was somebody in my life, fortunately my father was aware and took the time to say, okay, I think I know what this kid needs, He needs to, he kind of gave me that guidance, and it put me back on that track. And then, after, you're an engineer, you get it after your sophomore year, start getting into some more fun classes. Yeah.
Yeah, make you think a little bit more and a little bit more hands-on, and
Yep.
a little bit more of experiencing what the cutting board process was for you, right? Seeing something to completion, not just writing something on a piece of paper, right?
Well, the labs, the labs were phenomenal. And, I'm part of my career, I was at GVSU, and, the hands-on experience, the co-op experience, et cetera, there's nothing better, I think, that really turns you into a good engineer.
So you mentioned the first couple years you were at Michigan Tech.
Yep.
And was that what type of engineering?
Mechanical.
Mechanical engineering.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then after Michigan Tech, where did you head?
Well, then my dad got transferred to Illinois, and I lost my in-state residency, so I had to transfer to University of Illinois Urbana. So I finished my undergraduate degree there.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, phenomenal school, but huge. All right, major tier one research university. The I guess they would call it the College of Engineering was the same size student population wise as the at that time as the whole University of Michigan Technological University. I mean, so when I went down there, it was Michigan Tech was a smaller school,
Yeah.
great school. I one of the best experiences of my life. Don't get me wrong. But then I went into this big, huge, lecture rooms and halls and everything like that. It was a big challenge for me with that change, cultural change. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can see that being a difference. And then you took those, you had to learn some new study habits, right? Put in the work to learn the study habits to go and then get into university and be able to be successful in it. Were through that process, were you, you pass or make it through?
Well, I'll just share.
We're defining success on this, and we'll get to what your definition is. I just threw it out there. Right?
Well, no, I mean, this is because this can be important later in the podcast.
Okay.
Where I define my success and my role is now, and what I think fulfillment is for me now is that academically, I had at one point had 3 part-time jobs working my way through school. I mean, we're lower middle class income family. 5 kids. My parents were doing a great job raising us. So I had 3 part-time jobs, and student loans. And I didn't have the best study habits, and I didn't spend enough time doing the right things, socializing a bit too much, let's say. And academically, I got kicked out of school.
Mm.
They said, "Oh, you're done." And so that was my, between my sophomore, junior-ish year, because transfer credits and everything. And so, again, I want to get back to the point that there's a very important person in my life. So I went back to the dean of engineering. I said, I'm, kind of get back into school. I know I messed up. And this is after I got kicked out after my fall semester, and I went home and got my grade report and had to show it to my dad. And that's an experience you'll never forget, and didn't say much. He said, "Okay, what are you going to do?" The same thing, figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, very supportive. I mean, it was not, he didn't shame me. He didn't yell at me and all that kind of stuff. He just looked at me. He goes, "Okay, what are you going to do? This is your life, right? Here you go." So I went back to the dean of the College of Engineering, and he said to me, "Brent," he goes, "why should I let you back in? We have only so many seats here." He goes, "If I let a freshman in, they have say a 1 in 50 chance of graduating, whatever it is." He goes, "We got statistics on people like you. You're 1 in 10,000. Why should I risk that seat on somebody like you?" And so I came back the next day, and he wouldn't see me. I came back the next day, he wouldn't see me. And so I was sitting on the chair, and the secretary said, "The dean won't see you." And I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll sit here until I figure this out." Then the assistant dean called me in, Professor Carl Larson. And he called me in and he said, "You know what?" He goes, "These are the things you need to do to get back into our school. And, first of all, you got to change your friends. You got to change your location. You got to make this a priority. And he directed me to the Marine Corps.
Mm.
So after I did a summer program, a 10-week program, was called the platoon leader class. I came back. I graduated second in my platoon out of everybody. And I went to the community college, got A's on a couple classes, went back to the assistant dean. And he said, "Okay, we're going to give you a chance." So that's my story.
Yeah, I love that story and how the assistant dean didn't just let you sit there,
Well,
and he's like,
they let me stoop.
yeah,
They let
he's
me
like, he's
stoop.
gonna figure it out, but he might need a little bit of pointing in direction too,
Oh,
because
yeah.
have they potentially have been through those conversations before? It sounds like they had statistics with some of the different scenarios, but they could also probably see something in you that was like, there is opportunity.
Sure.
And willing to say like, hey, here's a potential path that could get you back on a path of, academic success.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much for telling that story and how that's, that change in maybe what you expected the outcome to be, changed into something potentially different, and you ended up getting into the Marine Corps for that program, and then getting back into school, and eventually then graduating. Correct? Or
Correct. No,
okay, you were
no, I did graduate.
okay.
I think I had like a 2.96 or 2
Okay.
point something like that. I mean, it was, when I got back, of course, I just started just
Yeah.
nailing everything. I had the discipline, I had the focus, and that's, but the key here that we'll come back to again later in some of this conversation is the fact that, again, there was somebody there, but they didn't give it to me. It was something you had to figure out.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious about the process that you went through with the Marine Corps. Would you say 10-week
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
period? And then you said something about discipline. So you mentioned going in, you had to learn new work ethic, or you had good work ethic, but you had to learn new habits of how to study, how to put priorities in place. You had maybe some of the wrong crowd that you're hanging out with, and then you went into this program and came out of it maybe with a little bit different perception on what it's going to take for priorities and how to set those.
Yeah.
Or what are some of the main things that you learned from the Marine Corps program that you went through?
Well, it was officer candidate school, and it was um, e- everything I guess you could imagine you might have seen in some of the movies. I
Yeah.
mean, it was, the drill instructor yelling in your face. I mean, it was exhaustive workouts. It was, continuous, very high. They set a very high bar, which I'm very proud of. And the graduation rate was very it was very severe. I mean, there was a significant number of people did not make it through, and that's a credit to the program in its whole. What can I say? It taught me. It really just taught me, make it. It just sounds just too corny or something, but you make it through the day, make it through this hour. I mean, there's periods of exhaustion, confusion. It's that you just face and said, okay, I got through that, so I'm going to make it the next day. I'm going to make it the next day. I'm going to make it the next day. And then you're with a cadre, your cohort, and you look around and you see how it formed them, and you see how it formed you. The camaraderie is, something you can't even measure, because you really see that physically, mentally, and psychologically, they tear you down and build you up. I mean, like all military programs do, successful ones do, because you become a unit.